everybody. The talk tonight will be in both English and Arabic. That's because of my limitation in not being able to speak Arabic yet. Ahmad and I will talk about the current exhibition that's on at Dara, The Power of Words, which is a selection from the Curatorial private collection. What we will do, how we will divide the evening is I will start with an overview of how words have started to be incorporated and used by artists in throughout modernism, throughout the 20th century, if you want. And then Ahmad will take an Arab perspective, focusing on calligraphy, as there has been a separate trajectory that made it interesting for the artists in this region that are not just influenced by modernism, but are also influenced by a much longer history of using words in art, or using words. Then we will focus on certain works that are paying particular attention to certain works that we have in this exhibition. We can't discuss them all, so we've made a selection for you. One of them will be this wonderful work that you are surrounded by, but we will get to that later. So now I will start with a brief overview of how words came to become an artistic tool, if you like, both as a concept and as a visual tool. Because I can hear myself falling away sometimes from the microphone. Is it clear? Is everyone?
Yes.
Thank you. Before the start of the 20th century, words weren't much used in art as a separate subject. You would see it usually to serve certain ends, in religious paintings to identify the saint or the patron, sometimes an artist's signature, a date, and perhaps sometimes a title. But that was pretty much what words were used for in paintings. That all changed at the beginning of the 20th century, and the first one to actually use a word in art were the Cubists, and it was Georges Braque in 1911, who included the word bal, as you can see. This was the first introduction of letters in words. You can see it in the top right corner of the image. The painting was called the Portugais, the Portuguese, and at that time the immigrant. Bal was just a reference to a popular dance at the time. The point is that it was something from low culture, which is already an influence that we will see come back later, the popular culture. But it started with introducing letters that is also becoming a two-dimensional thing. It was really making, because the letters were there, you could reinterpret the rest of the painting and see the dimensions differently. A letter is a very two-dimensional, a word is a very two-dimensional thing. And it was very consciously done by Braque. Because at the time, Picasso and Braque, who were both the Cubists working at the time, even put their own signatures on the back of paintings not to interfere with the composition of the painting. So you can understand that the first time they actually put a word in the painting, that was done with a very, very conscious, was a very conscious decision. As you see, Picasso picked it up very soon, the year after. This is a very famous painting, still like the chair. Came in the word joue. It is not always clear what these words mean. They don't particularly have a meaning, but they do make you think, because it actually makes the entire work a bit more ambiguous. You don't really know what you're looking at. You're trying, particularly with words, words have you have a much stronger relationship with words that you think that you know what it's supposed to mean than you have with images. Images can be ambiguous, you're kind of used to that. Words in our minds are supposed to mean something, so when they do not, they jar with the image and it makes you think even more than what you otherwise might. A little further down, Malevich was very interested by this new discovery of adding words, and he was in a very different style. As you can see, it's much more colorful. It is an explosion of elements in a painting that kind of all come at you. This is called Lady of the Poster Column. In 1914, he starts to add letters and words. And so you see it coming, spreading through Europe, if you want. One of the main protagonists that are using words is Duchamp. This is a very, very famous painting, and this is Nude Descending a Staircase, number 2. The title in capitals, you can't actually see it on this image, but the title was included in capitals. He submitted this at the time for the big exhibition, and he was not accepted, except if he would take away the title, because a nude descending a staircase, how could that happen? Well, that was an impossible thing to happen, but to actually say it and state it underneath was almost more offensive than the painting itself. So he obviously refused to do so. He said, well, I'll just retract, I won't submit my work if I have to change it. Duchamp's, of course, also very well known for the ready-mades, and this is the first ready-made with text in it. It's a postcard of the Mona Lisa, which he drew a moustache on. It's, I guess, also the first graffiti art that you find an example of. And then he has the letters underneath. I don't know if you can read them. L-H-O-O-Q. I don't know who of you speak French, but it's if you slowly say it, L-H-O-O-Q, it means something like she's got a no, she's got a hot bottom. if I use the word like that. So you will see how they also kind of subverted art to become, to make fun of the high status of art. They were not just incorporating popular culture and graffiti, they were actually playing with words and giving us word jokes. One of the next paintings is an artist actually I really didn't know much about. He's an American from the 1920s, Stuart Davis, but he is known as one of the first ones. He was very well known for doing cigarette packs, incorporating them in his paintings already in the 1920s, and you can see where this will go in the 1960s when Warhol was coming up. But he's quite avant the lettres, if I can make a wordplay like that. But you can see how words are starting to fill, this is all in the 1910s, 1920s, are starting to become more and more part of the art. And the other most important point to make is it is usually from popular culture. Already at the very beginning of introducing words into art, it's coming out of popular culture. Picasso, when he cut out pieces from the newspaper to add to his collages, they were from a newspaper, Le Journal, which was the tabloid of the time. That wasn't a sophisticated newspaper. So the choices were very consciously made to already use popular arts, references to either graffiti or jokes, or taking it from popular culture, advertising in this case. Around the same time, a little later, you got the Dada coming up. Dada is not so much an art movement or not so much a style as an attitude. It was a way of living. The artists are not working in one particular style, but there's lots of things that are connected, obviously. The painting here is Max Ernst. It's a new way of making collages. The word here is celebes. Hardly read it, it's on the right, underneath the elephant's right foot. You can see celebes. It is actually in reference to an obscene German schoolboy line that was about celebes and an elephant. So it is again, it's playing on popular culture, but you really have to know it before you understand the painting. And that's what they were doing at the time. You see, the next person is another one of the Dadaists, is Raoul Hausmann, based in Berlin. The reason I'm including him here is actually I couldn't find a good image. These are two images. Is he is very well known for doing the first photomontages, or one of the first to use photomontages quite a lot in his work, and you can see also how he starts to include letters. Another artist I'll spend a little is Picabia, who was a close friend of Duchamp. You can see on the top the letters UDNIE, Adni. It doesn't mean anything. He was a master of verbal puzzles, including letters in his composition, or words that look like words, sound like words, might be words, but actually don't mean anything. And he himself compared it to musical compositions. He also said, why not accept a sign that does not evoke accepted conventions? And that is the fact with words, we are much more, as I said before, when we see a word, we kind of expect, it's loaded with expectations that we can read it, that we can understand it, or if it's not our language, but that someone can read it and understand it. So when we see something like Adni, we think it is a proper word in first instance. We will never see it purely for a compositional element in first instance. Another one of the Dadaists is Schwitters, Kurt Schwitters. The next image. In this case, words become abstract forms. He's playing with it as in a different way than the others. As you can see, he is also very much influenced from before, from the Cubist collages, but he didn't just add a few newspaper clippings to an entire composition. He made an entire composition of tram tickets, a little bit of cloth, waste paper. I mean, collage was the main thing rather than a piece here and there. We're going quickly through the centuries, obviously. Although it was first up in 1929, this is a very, very famous painting, obviously, Magritte. I've always thought this image was called Cécile by une pipe, but it's actually called The Treachery of Images, of which this was one. It's a series he did of what he calls word pictures. The thing with him is, as you can see, the image is as of a school book, as if it's explaining something, or an old-fashioned a grammar object lesson. This object is this. So it's a very familiar type of image, particularly from the 20s, the way they kind of visualized it then. But then the fact that he says that it's not a pipe makes it all the more jarring with what you know is negating the fact that it's not a pipe. Magritte did this for the rest of his life. The rest of his working life is playing with words and images. As you can see, also in 1929, he wrote a treatise, called Words and Images. It is actually something we'll consider briefly for the title of the show because of this. It's probably hard to see, but Here he basically states how little connotation there is between an object and what represents it. So the image and the object itself. The painting of a pipe isn't actually a pipe. I don't know if you can read it from there, but it's quite a nice. Yes.
There are objects you don't need them.
Yeah, there are. Il y a des objets qui se passent le nom.
They don't need a name.
They don't need a name. That's the little ship. An object rencontre son image. An object sees its image, and an object acquires its name. Il arrive que l'image et le nom de ce object and name meet each other.
Specifically, parfois le nom d'un objet tient d'une image, lieu d'une image.
Yeah, sometimes the name of an object takes the place of an object, of an image. In real life, a word can take the place of an object, like when she says le soleil, the sun. So he has all these kind of little philosophical notes on how words and images relate to each other. Now, this is a famous, the first pop art, or recognized as one of the first pop art paintings. It's Richard Hamilton, a UK artist who in 1956. This is called What Is It That Makes Today's Home So Different, So Appealing? And it is a bit of a cynical British view on mass culture, and particularly US mass culture. You can see parts of advertising. It's a home full of the newest and the latest things as advertised, and usually coming at this time. This is the 50s. The mid-50s, coming from the United States. Obviously in Britain, post-Second World War, that's where all the new thing came from. It's a bit of a cynical view of US pop, but it's a work that is generally named as the first pop art work, possibly because of the word pop as well appearing on the record, as you can see in the, I don't know if you can read it, on the orange record, what he's holding. In the States at the time, and this is all the 50s, there's Jasper Johns, very well known for using words, and this is Full Start from 1959, and the weird thing here is that he names colors which are not the color of the color that he names, so it's kind of playing with your mind. He's done it differently. I mean, he's obviously very well known for his flags, and he's also had one-word colors, but this is something, that plays again with how the relation between what you see and what you read. Pop art is now really taking off in the 1960s. And language is key to pop art because, as you can understand, in advertising, particularly in advertising and also in comic books, language is key. So artists that work with these popular cultural elements, they can't go around using words. Well, this is obviously Roy Lichtenstein, who always blows up his big comic book elements. I mean, here's the text. I'd rather sink than call Brad for help. But he's also well known for his, the big images with pow or explosions or things like that. Another artist, of course, we cannot escape in this respect is Andy Warhol. This is Black Beans from 1968. Yeah, need I say more? It is advertising. It is, he is the embodiment of pop art, I think. That's what he's generally known as. Taking Campbell's soup and not doing much to it other than just painting the same label is was taking everything that came before it a few steps further. So as you can see how it starts from just a word to and just lending things from popular culture to just copying things that are in popular culture is leading to the next step where language actually is an art. So it's no longer used as a subject, it's becoming the art itself. And this is in the 60s as well. A good example is a bit of a failed surrealist, Marcel Groothuis, who set up this museum, a modern art museum, 19th century section, the Department of Eagles. It was a completely imaginary museum, but words played a key role because everything was labeled, this is not art. Like under every object that he had in his traveling museum. So it's becoming much more conceptual. Probably one of the most well-known examples is Joseph Kosuth. This is 1 and 3 chairs. He would put a wheelchair next to a photograph of that same chair, next to a photograph of a dictionary of what a chair is. The chair and the photo of the chair would have to change. So if he would install it today, he would pick a chair from here, a photo of that chair with the dictionary. So it's becoming so conceptual that the artwork isn't one thing anymore. It's all about an idea of an artwork. As he says himself, he's questioning the nature of art, and that's all. Well, this is very much an artist of that time, and he's using language, and if I quote him, it seemed to be the only potential for being a neutral, non-material, which is true, I guess. It's text. It's a different way of looking at art. So that's Joseph Kosuth in 1965. Another very famous proponent of using words is, of course, Ed Ruscha. Very well known in the beginning for logos. He's used 20th century Fox logo, the Standard Oil company, very American. And he evolved in using just words on a simple colored canvas. It's not communication. It's never meant to be communication. That's what he says. He says it's nice if people derive meaning from it, but I don't intend to say anything with it. Whether that's true is a different story, because people will think something of it, and he must realize that as well, but that's what he says. This is from the 1970s. Artists who read books. I chose this particular one. He has many, because, of course, that's another way of using words in art, is artist books. Some of them we have mentioned in the exhibition as well. Bruce Nauman takes it to a next step. He's using language in three-dimensional form. He's making it into he has photos and his neon, and he's particularly looking at the properties of words. So he's seeing in depth that there's the word eat. This is a work. And Bruce says, and this is also something with them, I couldn't get enough of what I was interested into paintings. That's why I use language. And this is another Nauman. It has the words violence, violins, and silence. Now make of that what you want. I mean, on a sound basis, of course, it sounds all very nice. Violins, silence, violins, it all has there's a good connection on the level of sound, but there's another connection. You can try to think of that yourself. So this is starting to become, through the 70s, another way. And you see art, actually, this is a way, Naumann is at the, if you know Kendall Gears, who's a contemporary artist, who's an artist working now, he's a South African artist, is doing very similar things, of taking words within words, like terror and error as one like things, and so you can see it come back. You can see many of these strands come back in works that are existing today. Another artist is, that has to be mentioned, is Jenny Holzer. It's the end of the 70s, obviously we're coming to the 80s. Jenny Holzer started with a series of what she called truisms. And instead of in the gallery, she took it all outside. She used it on windowsills, and this is Times Square. You could see her work, not just, and she only uses text ever, just only text. But she will use public advertising space. So the lines become, the borders become even more muddled between whether it's, what are you looking at? If you're looking on Times Square, you're looking at advertising, you're looking at art. I mean, this is in the late 70s, it was all new. This another example here. This is on a cinema display. So you could really literally find her work everywhere, not knowing whether this was going to be the next film, or in this case, it was an artwork. So you can see how that predates Mohammed Abbas, who here uses the parking lot to put his poem, which is part of our show. You can see it from outside. Barbara Kruger, I shop, therefore I am. This is, weirdly enough, the big shop in London, Selfridges, has taken, it's like in this way how she subverts advertising and gives a message that is with a twist. Now the shops have taken that back. Like in 2010 or 11, Selfridges had this message everywhere as a true message. So you can see how it goes around and comes around. This is from 1982. And this is Jean-Michel Basquiat, the first, I guess, yeah, the first graffiti artist that moved into the gallery spaces in the 80s. We've shown the film here in December. But so you can see how through the 20th century, and I'm stopping with Basquiat not because he's the latest artist or the last artist working with text or with words, but I think because the artists I've selected in the 20th century are the artists who used words the most in their work. Who are, I mean, there are more artists who've used words occasionally here and there in their work, but these are the artists that have used them in very different ways. I mean, introducing letters and words for formal reasons in the beginning, to a reference to popular culture, and you can see those strands are all running through the 20th century. Verbal puzzles, you saw it from Picabia, but also Jasper Johns, a few decades later, has also verbal puzzles, if you want, or playing with your mind by calling the color red, blue, etc. Or engaging with philosophy, like Magritte, who had his own little philosophical take on words. But then Marcel Boothuis with his museum, Joseph Kossuth with what is a dictionary thing. So you can see how this runs through the times and nothing stands by itself. And that is, of course, true in many things in art. But that is, younger artists now are using all these different ways that have been set out before them in their own way, and they are experimenting with words because language is it has played an increasing role in the 20th century. And this is, a lot of younger artists are recognizing this value of words, how that can add to their works. We will touch on that later because we're going to be discussing some of the younger artists' works throughout this exhibition. So for now, I will give the mic to Ahmad, who is going to talk a bit in Arabic about the use of words.
مرحبا. يمكن المقدمة رح تكون أصغر بكثير من استخدام الحرف في المدرسة الغربية. عدة أسباب. أول شيء يعني شومسكي عرف اللغة كمكتسب حضاري عند الحضارات، خاصة لما بلشت في عند السومريين بلشت لتوثيق الحياة على الطبق الحاكم بالنهاية، وعند الحكماء بالنهاية اللغة الهيروغليفية وعند البابليين والأشوريين. هذا كان قبل الإسلام، يعني اعتبر مكسب حضاري تقريبا طبقي استمر قبل الإسلام. إذا نطلع على الجاهلية، يعني إذا نطلع على المعلقات تحديدا، السبع معلقات اللي كانت موجودة اللي كانت تختار من ضمن القبائل في سوق عقاد، كانت تعلق أهم المعلقات أو السبع معلقات أول 10 في بعض الروايات على حائط الكعبة بتكتب بماء من الذهب. يعني هذا ممكن أطلع عليه كأول انستليشن أو حتى تعليق للوحة فنية ممكن في المشرق. استمر التعامل مع اللغة المكتوبة كمكتسب حضاري مقدس. يعني مش بس عند الإسلام هي لغة القرآن، برضه بالصين هي لغة الحكماء. يعني حتى تدوين القرآن ما تم إلا بحياة عمر بن الخطاب اللي هو الخليفة الثاني بعد الرسول. استمر هذا اعتبار أي استخدام ثاني للغة المكتوبة في العالم العربي أو المشرق كان ممكن يكون تشويه حداثي، وممكن حتى نطلع في العهد العثماني تطور الاهتمام بالخط كحرفة في النصوص المقدسة أيضا، لكن أيضا لأسباب التركيز على الهوية الدولة العثمانية الدينية اللي هو الجامع على أقطار الدولة العثمانية، تم إهمال الخطوط اللي نشأت في العراق مثلا اللي هي الكوفي والديواني. كما تم إهمال الخطوط اللي نشأت في المغرب العربي اللي هي القيرواني والقرطبي اللي نشأت من خلال ممكن نحكي ازدهار الفنون في الأندلس اللي طلع منها الخط القرطبي والمسند اللي بيفرع على خطوط أخرى ثانية، إضافة إلى إهمال اللغات الإسلامية الأخرى من الأقليات مثل البربر. يعني إذا بنطلع هون على اللوحات رشيد قريشي اللي هو جزائري واللي رسم اللي فيها خطوط أيضا لحسن مسعودي اللي هو عراقي، ولوحات محمود درويش نطلع على رسوماتهم مثلا غريب في مدينة بعيدة. بنلاقي في طبعا ما في تمثيل رمزي مباشر للقصيدة، انما تأويل خاص بالرسام وحتى للكاتب. اللي ممكن نلاحظه هون الخطوط اللي ما بتشبه العربية او هي ممكن تكون بمجموعة اللغات السامية، هي لغة بربرية المكتوبة. هون ممكن نلاقي هذا التمثيل اللي هون فوق اللي هو أسطورة ريموس ورومولوس اللي أسست على أساسه روما. هون نيجي الموضوع ممكن أسطرت اللغة أو ممكن امتداد للتجريد باللغة اللي بلشوه. يعني إحنا بلشنا شوي متأخرين بالعربية. ممكن نحكي إنه أول بناء حقيقي مدرسي ومنهجي لاستخدام الخط في اللغة والبناء عليه ممكن يكون محور تجريدي اللي هم الفن العراقي. بس قبل ممكن رح نرجع للفن العراقي الموجود منه. ممكن نستعرض 3 فنانين موجودين بالبيت الأزرق. بس قبل ممكن إيلين تحكي لنا على شيء كويس.
Thank you. Yes, I don't want to repeat what you've said, but we're going to briefly talk, or you've talked already briefly about the works here in the room we're sitting in. So I want, who doesn't speak Arabic? How many people don't speak Arabic? One. Zatari. You speak Arabic. About 3. I don't want to be too repetitive, so I'll keep it very short. That's of course the thing, but for people who didn't understand it, the work here is graphic prints by Rashid Qureshi, which are based on poems or sometimes parts of poems from Mahmoud Darwish, and those poems have in turn been calligraphed, rendered in calligraphy, as I will say nicely, by Hassan Massoudi. Hassan Massoudi is Iraqi, Mahmoud Darwish, Palestinian, Rashid Qureshi, he was born in Algeria, so you can see how 3 nations come together in one work here. It's really an encounter between poetry, the picture or the image, and calligraphy, which the work itself is called A Nation in Exile, and these are the foundations of this nation in exile, as or you could the artistic foundations for a nation in exile. The big black rendered calligraphic symbols, if you want, are apparently based on Berber symbols. They also have a pictorial aspect. If you, and I think that's what you were just pointing out, because I understood Robert's and Remus. If you look at the one above Yanal, in fact, you can make out, if you want, the shape of the wolf with the suckling baby Romulus and Remus underneath. Can people see it, or do you want me to come and point it out? With above an architectural structure, perhaps Rome, as you know, that was the founding of Rome. More of these, behind the screen you can't see it. There's another pictorial aspect where it looks as people in shrouds. So there's a many multi-layered meaning within these works that may not be visible at first sight, but it's they're quite amazing in that respect. The underlying small symbols and letters he uses, Qureshi uses symbols, motifs, ciphers from wherever he can find them, basically, from other languages, other cultures. Sometimes he makes them up. They're not always legible, which makes the work extremely interesting, because it makes you stand before them and trying to absorb all this information, part of which is visual, and then it relates to the poem. It doesn't literally translate the poem, by the way. It's not that he makes a picture of the poem, but it's a mutual dance, almost. I think that's the good way to describe it. Shall we go into the next one? Or do you want to talk about the Blue House?
Yeah.
Yes, Ahmad's going to talk briefly about the 3 Iraqi artists we have in the Blue House. The Blue House has, if you've walked through the exhibition, which I hope you have, if not, please go ahead and do so. In the Blue House, we start the exhibition with, I would say, the older generation, is that a nice way of saying it, of the artists in the exhibition, in very different styles and very different ways, each using lettering in art. He's going to pay attention to 3 of them.
اوكي، بس اول ممكن نقرا مقدمه، جزء من مقدمه عبد الكريم عبد الكبير خطيبي عن اللوحه هي تحديدا، اللي هي اسطوره ريموس في رومانس. حكت إيلين عن الاسطوره اللي بتشبه عنا اللي هي ميثولوجيه، طبعا بتشبه عنا اسطوره الرسول موسى لما القته والدته في النهر وتبنى الرعاة. احد او طفلين ضعتهم ذئب بهذاك الوقت، عبال ما وجدهم راعي وكبروا صار هو مؤسس روما. هون عبد الكبير خطيبي بيتساءل انه اكيد هذه الصوره الرمزيه حكايه طريفه لا، الا ان ما يشغل بالنا هنا سواء يتعلق الامر باسطوره ابراهيم او بقصه روما هو التصوير الاركيولوجي لذاكره وحكاياتها، الهندسه التي تلد الاسطوره، تركيبها التوافقي من اشارات وصور. واذا كان اللاوعي مبنيا مثل لغه، فمن حقنا ان نتساءل كيف تنبذ إماءة الفن الحاسمة عن اختراع لغة جديدة، لغة في اللغة، تحويل في الفن. وهذا يقع كل مرة تقوم فيها حركة الإماءة الصورية، وهي ذروة تحفر وتحول اللغة إلى صورة أو إلى إبداع جرافيكي لأشكال متخيلة. عبد الكبير الخطيبي كتب نص مذهل طبعا عن تأويل استخدام الخط في اللغة. لا شاعر له مكانته زي محمود درويش، كان عم بيطلع لاختراع لغة أخرى في النص، بمعنى تأويلها المجرد أحيانا. اسم المجموعة هي أمة في المنفى، وهذا كان مقابل اختراع كمان لغة أخرى للمنفى. بينما التجريد ممكن حقيقة أو مش حقيقة، بس بداية العمل الممنهج زي ما حكينا قبل ممكن نعتبرها من المدرسة العراقية تحديدا. في 1977 هي لوحة شاكر حسن آل سعيد اللي ممكن أسس مجموعة فنية أو مفهوم جديد لاستخدام الخط في اللوحة الفنية، سماه مفهوم البعد الواحد. هاي ممكن نعتبرها إحدى نتائج هاي المدرسة، ممكن متأخرة حتى. ركز في خلال هذا البيان على موضوع الفن يستلهم الحرف، الفنان يستلهم الحرف. إذا نطلع هون اللوحة طبعاً لها جانبين، يعني ممكن نطلع عليها من الأمام ومن الخلف. برأيه إنه في وصفه اللوحة كانت إن هي محاولة لإدخال الزمن كعنصر للمشاهد حينما يدور حول اللوحة. الفنان الثاني اللي موجود عندنا بالبيت الأزرق اللي هو رافع الناصري، مجموعة من تلك الأرض النائية مع مي مظفر اللي هي قصائد لزوجته الشاعرة مي مظفر. برضو رافع الناصري من أوائل الرواد اللي اشتغلوا على الخط في اللوحة. ممكن غريب إنه نطلع عليه لأنه اضطر، يعني أول ما درس في بغداد رافع الناصري، بعدين درس الفن المعاصر في الصين وتعلم تخطيط الحرف على الحرير. بعدين اللي استلهم ممكن رجوعه إذا نقدر نحكي رجوعه للخط العربي تحديدا اللي هو بالبرتغال، لما درس الجرافيك ورجع للعراق وانضم لشاكر حسن آل سعيد في المجموعة. هون نطلع على مرحلة جديدة ممكن نعتبرها معاصرة. فنان عراقي آخر اسمه هيمت علي. هيمت علي قدم معظم حياته أو أبحاثه الفنية أو جزء كبير من حياته الفنية في اليابان. إذا نطلع حتى على الطريقة اللي علقتهم إيلين عم بتحاكي الخط الياباني. الورق المرسوم عليه أيضا هو ورق عادي يستخدم في الأسواق وفي المحلات التجارية. الخطوط اللي عم نلاقيها موجودة هي أيضا محاكاة لحركة الخط الياباني. هلا ممكن إيلين تقرأ عليه.
Yes, I'm going to talk briefly about. We're not going to discuss some of the younger artists, only much older. Hussein Ali, she made the work that is next door in the small room called We. It is an installation with the swings, words written in white on each swing, and then the lights projecting on it, as well as sound. The work was made in 2006, and the reason I'm saying that is it predates the current situation in Syria. She is, in this work, focusing on let's take one step back. The words she inscribes on the swings are the basic foundation, the building blocks of a society. They include bread, freedom, love, business, homeland, although they also include words such as war. So perhaps that's not a building block, but it's definitely, unfortunately, part of society. Money, promise, sorrow, these are just a few examples of the words that she's carefully placed. It's also important to note that she has placed the words in the order that they appear. It is not us that have done that. She has a very specific order of the words in the way she has installed it. For her, she wrote a poem that goes with it herself. Whether it's part of the work, I'm not sure. I don't think it is. It's not part of the work, but she does put it on the kind of text next to it, so you can't completely negate it. Saying, everyone chooses his own swing, we all swing like children, yet someone else is pulling the strings. The greatest push is yet to come. Politics, economy, religion, love, war versus peace, love versus hate. We are here and there, we are alive, we are humans. And she also wrote it in Arabic, where I'm sure it sounds even more beautiful. The moving, the backwards, the childhood connotations of sitting on a swing, but also the ups and downs of life, if you want, the always going back to where you came from. Is it possible to change? There are many questions that you can ask in an installation like this, and it's really something to be experienced, and she always wants you to experience the work by physically walking in it and between the swings, not sit on them, but we've had people do that, not to great success. But it really immerses you, and it shows a very different way from using words. As you can see from the historical overviews I gave, Hussein takes it another step forward, surrounding you with words that you can play with now, that you're not just reading and looking at, you're surrounded by them. And the reason, that's why I wanted to highlight this work. It is another way how artists have moved on from the way of using words in their work. Should I go on with another artist, Basma?
Yeah.
And then we do it. A completely different way is Basma Sharif. She is using it in film, and film is something we haven't touched on, but also in film work, words have come up. There's obviously Mona Khatun, who was one of the first. The work is from 1988, that's the work next door. I won't be discussing that work. I want to discuss Basma's work. Basma al-Sharif uses in her films different elements. She uses still images, moving images, sound, text, elements of language. It is not so use of language as in your face as, for instance, in Mona Khatoum's video. It is in a much different way. She communicates a feeling, an event. I will show you the first bit where she uses, because I'm assuming not everyone has seen the movie. I'll play the first. Yeah, the beginning. Is it visible? Should we try for that?
واضح.
يوم خير زي ما يجي كل الذكريات اللي بنمر بيها ما بيبقى لهاش معنى إلا لما بنفتكرها. الذكرى الأولى كانت فيها علامة هي أسوأ حالة ممكن الواحد يمر بيها. المال وعشان الوقت يعدي سجن البلاد بيخلي الموضوع الوطن هو تاريخ عظيم لا يمتد بس في التاريخ ده. وعندما أتى المساء الصيف البرد الأحمر سوداء غطت زمان المدينة الكبيرة زاد الأبراج والحمرات العالية وحوطتنا من كل مكان في الدور 28 وعدت الأيام
I'm just going to forward to the next please go and see it if you haven't seen it yet. She unfolds here the narrative of a group who are measuring distances between different cities, and you will see, the text that you will see is the distance between various cities on the planet, culminating in 78 kilometers that separate Gaza and Jerusalem, and then she turns all the numbers into years, the main years. The film, as you can see, the way she uses text is very, it's part of the film, it's an element to this film, it's not the main element to the film. But the way she works is very visual. She conveys feelings with her films. It is not a linear story that she's telling, which makes it really hard to discuss it here. You will see visual connections between octopuses in aquariums with phosphorus bombs exploding over Gaza. You can then see how basically horrible events like that almost become background on our screens. For herself, if I can quote her, she said, "The work began as hours of unrelated footage and a frustration with history, facts, and the impossibility to reconcile tragedy with my own experience of a lifetime of witnessing tragedy from a physical distance to Palestine." And she's, at the moment she lives and works in Paris, but she didn't grow up here, she grew up in both the States and France. Chicago. You can see the text appearing here. One of the other works in the exhibition of one of the younger artists is Eline.
عمل الفنان العراقي اللي قام معرضه في دارة. موجود الارت ورك هذا بالمختبر ضمن المعرض الحالي. قصة العمل هو كان عادل عقيم في أمريكا بالإقامة فنية، طبعا ضمن الوسط اللي كان يقابل هم الفنانين والمثقفين، فبطبيعة الحال لما يسألوه أنت من وين؟ كان يقول أنا عراقي، فكان يرد عنصري. فهو كان يتساءل على شو تأويل الاعتذار هذا، هل هو اعتذار عن احتلال العراق؟ هل هو اعتذار عن شخصي ممكن يكون عن احتلال العراق، أو ممكن يكون اعتذار بالنيابة عن حكومة الولايات المتحدة أو شيء. فاستلهم العمل هذا من الخطاب الثقافي اللي وجده بأمريكا، وهو ممكن من أوائل الأعمال اللي ممكن شوهت البلاغة شوي، ممكن نشوفها بأعمال ثانية مثل الشيء القريشي. ممكن نعتبرها كمان بداية لاستلهام الثقافة الفردية غير المتزمنة تقريبا. يعني مثلا في عمل ثاني اسمه الفنانة ليلى شوى استخدمت الجرافيتي في اللوحة الفنية ضمن كمان وسائط متعددة. فاحنا عم نحكي على مرحلة ممكن تكون جديدة لاستخدام الخط اللاتيني أو العربي أحيانا ضمن منظومة التغير الجذري اللي عم نشوفه في جرافيتي بالشارع. يعني هذا يعتبر فن، بس لأمتى الفن ممكن هل وظيفته يعني فعلا انه يعبر عن الثقافه السائده او يكون فن مستقبلي او تنبؤي؟ هذا ما حدا بيقدر يجاوب عليه، بس ممكن من خلال الاعمال زي اعمال عادل عبدين او ليلى الشوى اللي تعتبر حديثه نسبيا معاصره تقريبا، ممكن نستلهم ايش الفن اللي ممكن يكون عليه المستقبل.
Then this is one of the last works we will discuss. It is James Webb. It is installed on the headquarters on a song. The Arabic, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, please bear with me. There's a line that never goes out, which is based on a song by the Smiths. So again, an appropriation of something from popular culture. It is a song that there's no internet. Sorry, I was gonna have the song play, but apparently that's not gonna work. But it's a song from the Smiths. I am not good at his name. Anyone? But it never goes out. Pretty much like that. He's taking it completely out of context by putting it on a building in Amman. I mean, the song goes, "Take me out tonight, where there's music and there's people, and they're young and alive, and driving in your car. I never want to go home because I haven't got one anymore." And it goes on, "Take me out tonight because I want to see people and I want to see life." It's a very upbeat song with a twist because there's no home that welcomes him anymore. But by taking it out of context and placing it on a building in Amman, it acquires a completely new meaning, because if you read it without either the background knowledge of the lyrics of the song or that it comes from the Smith, which was a fairly radical band of its time, I would say, politically very engaged, very anti-Thatcher and that era. But taking it out of context in 2010 and placing it on the building here, there's a light that never goes out. It is a very, it acquires a different meaning. It acquires a meaning, it acquires a meaning on itself, which is how he subverts the words like this. And you can go back in the way he uses words in art to people like Jenny Holzer, like Naumann, and the same with Mohammed Abbas, who wrote a poem on the full house parking complex, which is a poem he wrote himself in this case. I think he wrote it in French, but it's been translated into Arabic onto the parking complex. As you can see, how those kind of works, and also other work within the Neon, I'm sorry, can be traced back through history if you want, where some of the roots lie. The same with work like Leila Shawa, who has photos in the lab, the walls of Gaza with the graffiti photographed. You can see how graffiti already started with Duchamp on his Mona Lisa, going all the way through to Basquiat, to the walls of Gaza. Just like collages that have been used by cubists and by dadaists, and using normal material. The Ahmad Ali works that he was speaking about in the Blue House are all on Japanese wrapping paper, I think it is, or it's Japanese paper. Ahmad Ali was in Tokyo and broke out. He was stuck very heavy materials. This is what he used. So you can see how it all traces back. And that's the most interesting thing, that in here it has its own strand, its own trace that you can go back to, which is the use of calligraphy and the use of words from its own very rich history that is that nicely collides in this exhibition. I hope you enjoyed it. If anyone has any questions.